capital in South Carolina for a rally against Obamacare. We've got a number of speakers here today. I'm just going to read them off here. Well, there's a bunch of them, but some of the key folks that were speaking were President-elect of the American Association of Physicians and Surgeons, Thomas Kendall, who I recorded, Representative Bill Chumley, Senator Lee Bright, who has a Senate version of a bill that's going through, and Senator Tom Davis, who gave the argument for nullification, and lastly, Jesse Grayson, who is with the John Birch Society. So there were others that spoke. I didn't get them all recorded, but you're going to be watching it coming up soon, and it's really amazing. We now have probably 500 to 600 people here show up at the State House, which is quite amazing. And there's going to be a press conference shortly, but I just encourage you to watch this video and be encouraged that there are things happening to save our republic right here in South Carolina. Thank you.
All right, we were going to have the national anthem brought to us by Miss Christina Kendall, and we would like for you to sing along with us, please.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
We've got a few speakers that are going to enlighten us a little bit about what we're here today. And our first speaker, I believe, will do a fine job as a medical doctor of explaining to us just what is so profoundly wrong with Obamacare. And for that, we'd like to welcome and introduce Dr. Thomas Kendall, the President-elect of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons.
When I graduated from medical school in 1976, the thought of donning my professional white coat and speaking on the steps of the State House for liberty would never have occurred to me. My focus in medicine has been toward my patients, not the politics of freedom. The Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, which is neither for patient protection nor affordable, has assaulted virtue and freedom and has placed the physician and the patient relationship under the jurisdiction of the government. There are three reasons for a patient to see a doctor. Number one, to determine the state of health, and in some measure to maintain that health, and perhaps to fill out a form. Number two, you go to a doctor because you're sick or injured and you know something is wrong. Third, you are taken to a doctor because you are sick or injured, but you don't know it. This is the current state of this nation's condition. We are desperately ill, in a condition of confusion and delirium. The government's attempted dominance of the patient-physician relationship is overstepping its constitutional boundaries. In fact, the Affordable Care Act, as Obamacare is called, has essentially replaced the U.S. Constitution And the liberties that our Declaration of Independence and Constitution serves to guarantee are under attack and are being surrendered. This politically volatile issue of health care reform has fallen under the banner of transformation of America. The seeds of social democracy have borne a poison, forbidden fruit that has proven to be tyrannical and destructive to those unsuspecting and naive who taste with no suspicion and who with no understanding or discernment believe the promises. Ladies and gentlemen, God has ordained three institutions: the family, the church, and civil government. Our nation is experiencing its worst family deterioration in its history. The church's influence in our country is pallid and weak. The civil government, which exists to punish evildoers and to protect the innocent, is far overreaching its boundaries and is becoming the enemy of the people. Amen. The Republic of America now has a government whose attempt to rule violate its own charters. Yes, sir. But history gives us reason for hope. Conflicts and struggles, hardships and challenges, victories and defeats are all included in the providence of Almighty God. The principles of equity, nobility, integrity, and righteous justice are all characteristics of the sovereign Savior who gave himself for us. These are the truths that set us free and keep us free. As we consider the practical everyday effects of these enslaving regulations, we need to be aware that 24% of South Carolina's doctors are over 60 years of age. Most are tired of fighting bureaucratic battles. This punitive federal regulatory nightmare called ObamaCare, which most Congress members likely have not even read, will push veteran doctors out of practice, will cripple small businesses, will place an economic burden on our state that will require greater revenue, and will make patients subject to independent payment advisory boards, which will determine who gets care, who will provide the care, what kind of care it will be, if it is given at all. There are so many ill-defined operations in the Affordable Care Act that are subject to Health and Human Services Secretary that it causes one to wonder, what will be the criterion used to make these decisions? And why are there so many IRS agents to be appointed? That's why I say this is not about health care. This is about control. As President-elect of the Association of American Physicians and Surgeons, I represent a group of freedom-defending, patient-protecting doctors. Doctors who, with courage and conviction, individually and collectively, oppose with honor and distinction the socialization of medicine. Yes! Yes! And we wholeheartedly support this nullification effort.
And I thank you for the kind applause, but thank you for making the trip. I know it's hard to do, but I appreciate you being here so much. God bless every one of you, every one of your families. I'm just so thankful that we have people who are going to stand up for what's right. And remember always, we're doing what's right. This is it. Morally, constitutionally, this is it. We're on the right side.
That's right.
Also, I want you to remember another thing. You are driving the bus. You are the ones, you are the people, we're the people too, as a citizen. But the citizens of the state are the ones that's going to make this happen. or not make it happen. And with this crowd we've got here today, and this cold day like this, it's so great. It's so heartwarming. I'd like to take just a few minutes and tell you a little background. You can say happened. Before, we had some constituents. I had some constituents approach me. I was upset about this Obamacare thing really bad, and had some constituents that came and asked me, says, let's do something. Let's do something. Let's research it. So what we did was we put a committee together informally, just people of some medical doctors, some attorneys, some constitutional professors, small business people, and we put these all together and we researched this thing and we prayed like everything about it. We met 3 or 4 times. Our committee grew, and it came to the very possibility of this could possibly happen. But let me tell you something. This is not based on victory, and I want to say it again. It's based on right and wrong. That's what it is. We're going to win. We're going to win it. We're going to set the standard. Look around you here. This is South Carolina. South Carolina is the first state to react. We're small geographically, but we're powerful in principles. I want to take a minute to thank so much my colleagues over here. I mean, so heartwarming, the support we're getting in the House, and I want you to be encouraged by that, because we have a great legislature. We have a 77 Republican majority in the House, and we have people down here who are genuinely interested in making things better for their children and their grandchildren, and for your children and grandchildren. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to all work together on this thing, work hard as we can to make it happen. All right, one other quick thing I want to tell you about is keep in mind while we're in this battle, if you will, nullification is going to be, I've had many radio interviews, and I've had some national requests for interviews for some of the big shows, which I'm not taking any of that now. We're dealing with South Carolina at this moment, and they'll come see us when we're victorious. I promise you that. But keep in mind that our goal is to nullify Obamacare. That is it. That's what we're going to do. That is the issue. Nullification is the tool. It's the tool to do this. It was provided for us to use at this very moment by our genius founding fathers who wrote the Constitution. We've gotten away from it. We've let the federal government little by little by little by little drift away from this. We're going to pull them back. Not just to this. It's time. The states and the people are the authorities, okay? This is what we're here for. We're here, and it's absolutely the right thing to do. We've got to be on board as the Obamacare thing that is the problem. And I want you to understand this also. The enemy, I won't call it, I'll say the opponent to us, is no one that I know of here in Columbia. Everybody I have talked to has been so supportive, and I believe we're going to have unbelievable support for this. I really believe we are. Our opponents are in Washington, D.C. That's where they are. All right, we don't have, this is not about hating federal government. It's not about hating the administration. It's not about hate, period. This fight is about love. Love of freedom, love of liberty, love of our way of life in South Carolina. We're going to lead the country. Thank y'all so much. I appreciate it.
I just want to tell you where I stand, and I appreciate you guys being here today. I've heard the same argument about nullification, but if I've got to decide between standing with Jefferson and Madison versus standing with Kagan and Ginsburg, I know where I belong, and Ginsburg has gone as far as to say on foreign soil that we don't need to look to our Constitution. We need to look more to world courts and see what the world wants us to do.
No way.
Kagan, who is also on the Supreme Court, the 9 who know everything, Kagan on the Supreme Court has told us that she believes that what Supreme Court justices have decided in the past is more important than the Constitution. So I don't think we can let those guys make final decisions on the Constitution for us. If that's the case, then Congress one day could say, we don't need these states. They're causing a lot of trouble. They're having a lot of press conferences and raising a lot of cane and stirring people up. So let's just dissolve them. And then their accomplices in the Supreme Court could say, yeah, that's a good idea. Y'all are finished. Well, let me tell you, that ain't happening. I believe that our chains are being forged. These IRS agents, they're not friends. They're not here to bring us peace. And we know about those chains being forged, and we know what we had to do the last time they started forging them. They are trying now to come for the guns like I've never seen. They're trying to abuse a tragedy, a national tragedy, to promote an agenda, to deny us our freedom. Because if there's one thing that our colleagues understand is 50% plus one. And if they don't get 50% plus one, they don't get to come back. So I don't want to delay too long because, you know, a lot of times senators, we do talk a little long, and I recognize that fact. But there is a difference between power and authority. The federal government may have the power, and you know, the devil's got the power, but God's got the authority. The states have the authority, and it's time for us to take it back. Thank you, and God bless you.
Another one of my heroes, Senator Tom Davis.
Good morning. Y'all are going to be told, because I've been told the last few days when I announced that I had been invited to speak here, and I accepted with gratitude, and I got calls from Republican friends of mine saying, what are you doing at a nullification rally? That isn't smart. That's not based on the Constitution. That's not based on what our country stands for. And I just had to say to them, what did you learn in school? Who taught you in school? Have you read the Constitution? Because guess what, guys? Lee Bright's absolutely right. If I have to choose between Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, or Alina Kagan and Justice Sotomayor, I'm going to go with Madison and Jefferson every time. And the reason for that, there was a law passed back in 1800, back when this gentleman right beside me was president, that said that if you criticized a federal official, you could be placed in jail. The Alien and Sedition Act. Despite the First Amendment, if you spoke against your elected representative, you could be put in jail. Thomas Jefferson wrote for Kentucky a resolution nullifying that particular law, and it was never enforced in Kentucky. James Madison wrote a resolution for Virginia nullifying that congressional act, and it was never enforced in Virginia. We have a proud tradition of states pushing back against federal usurpation. And why is that? Well, it's been talked about today. It is a matter of agency and principle. When a principal delegates powers to an agent, that agent can only act on its behalf within the parameters that have been defined. The 13 states that ratified the United States Constitution, and every state that came in afterwards came in under the premise and with the assumption and the stipulation that they were sovereign, that they were the principals, and that they were delegated to the federal government specific, enumerated, limited powers, and that's the only realm within which they could act. With the knowledge and the expectation and the logical inference that if they acted beyond that power, that if they did things beyond which they were told they had the authority to act on their behalf, that they could be brought to heel. Nullification is a process, is a mechanism, as Representative Trumley said, of bringing an out-of-control federal government to heel. What sort of government do we have if not based on the constitutional republic handed to us by the founders? What sort of government do we have if it is not predicated upon the notion of sovereign states coming together in a compact and saying that for limited purposes, in specific ways, we want to act collectively? But independent of that, we do not want that principal power to be given away to that agent. in South Carolina, we have a great man who's been maligned for far too long in our nation's history, who articulated this principle and is recognized for his metaphysical genius, and that's John C. Calhoun. And I am a proud South Carolinian. I'm proud of our history, and I'm proud of John C. Calhoun. I am proud of that U.S. Senator. I am proud of that Vice President. I am proud of that Secretary of War and Secretary of State. I am proud of the man that stood up for state sovereignty at a time when Northern terrorists was trying to crush the South. He went ahead and stood up for South Carolina then. We're going to stand up for you now with your help. And let me say this. I respect Chad Conley is a wonderful GOP chairman. He's got a wonderful staff and he's provided wonderful support. But there is intelligentsia throughout South Carolina that call themselves Republicans and call themselves Republican leaders that are saying, this is not a fight worth having because you can't win. This is a fight worth having because the Supreme Court has already spoken. This is a fight worth having because what you're arguing is not supported by the U.S. Constitution. Don't be fooled. Those individuals do not know what they're talking about. You have the intellectual high ground here. You have the intellectual high ground here. Your argument is based upon what the Founding Fathers and their genius put together. Their argument is based upon what keeps them in power. Their argument is based upon what can they do in order to make themselves look good. What can they do in order to ingratiate themselves with who they think the movers and shakers are. That's not the truth. That's sophistry. That's sophistry. You guys know the truth. Because guess what? The U.S. Supreme Court can make decisions like it did in Plessy v. Ferguson, separate versus equal, but then in Brown Board of Education, they can reverse that and say, no, that's not the case. We can't go into this with the notion that we can't win, that the die is cast, that things can't change, that people's will can't change direction. That's defeatist. I'm not defeatist, and you're not defeatist. We all have our jobs to play here. We all have our roles. My friend Mick Mulvaney is up in Washington, D.C. fighting his heart out up in Washington, D.C. He's doing what he can. I can't do anything right now up in Congress. I can't stop the federal encroachment from being passed in the House and the Senate and signed into law by President Obama. But what I can do as a state senator, and what I promise you that I will do as a state senator, is make sure that every power the state of South Carolina has as a sovereign state will be exercised and utilized to push back against that federal encroachment. Because that is what our founders expect from us. And if we don't do that, we breach our oath. If we don't do that, we have broken a vow to God that we are going to enforce the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of South Carolina. If we don't push back in every single way we can, we don't deserve to be in those chambers, and you deserve to throw us out. My object over the next 4 years, and every day I walk into that Senate chamber, is to find another way that I can thwart federal encroachment, another way that I can stop the federal government from overstepping the bounds that we, the states, have given them within the Act. Every day I'm going to step in there and try to make South Carolina the freest state in the nation. This state has a proud tradition of leaders stepping up and holding aloft the candle of liberty at a time when things were darkest. We have to rise to that challenge now. We have right on our side. We have God's will on our side. We have the U.S. Constitution on our side. All we need is the will to get it done, and with your help, we will. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Harry. It's great to see everybody. Thank you for coming out. I'm cold, too, so I'll make this brief. We're going to head inside in just a couple minutes as soon as I'm done. But, I thank God we have these patriots up here, and look, we got a bill introduced that's going to protect our state. That's wonderful, right? I got news for you. It doesn't do anything. Bill's like, it does something. No, of course it does. They've done their part. Okay, but I got news for you. It doesn't protect any of us until it becomes law, and that's up to us. I'm addressing everyone here that this is just the beginning of everything that is going to take for us to make this bill law. They're doing their part. It's be up to us. The driving force behind passing this legislation will be consistent constituent contact, and that looks like you. We've got to throw away every standard bearer that we have in our mind of what it looks like to be a patriot, what it looks like to make the sacrifice, to make phone calls, to come to the State House, to do whatever it takes. How many times do we go to football games or we see all the people in the crowds that paint their faces and we see them screaming, "Defense! Defense!" We are all passionate. We see everyone screaming and celebrating something that doesn't even affect their life. Our families are being attacked right now. Our economy, our state is being assaulted. Our team is inside. I'm asking all of us to scream to them, "Defense! Defense!" This is where we draw the line in the sand. South Carolina, thank you for coming. We're going to go inside, and I just want to admonish all of you. It's going to be up to us. It's going to be up to us if we win or lose. God bless you all. Let's go inside.